or even private talks that should be best kept to oneself. Okay, so I decided I'd try a visual novel out, see how well that works, and see how long it takes me. And I know visual novels in general, especially if they're coming from foreign countries, are extremely long and have so many endings. So what I might do is I might make this an on and off continuation. It may not be an everyday thing, so don't expect the same video whenever I release this. But anyways, just to continue on, this is Root Double, Before Crime After Days, the extended edition on Steam. I'll give a link to the Steam page once I get the video up and running. But in any case, supposedly there are two characters. There's Watase Kasasagi and Natsuhiko Tenkawa. Not 100% sure exactly. Story date 9/16 and this is 9/10, so this is after. Okay. So a certain accent traps children in Labo, a nuclear research facility. It is then that the boy is caught up in a mysterious phenomenon. He finds himself recalling the past as if he were living it. A strange phenomenon indeed. He soon watches once again as a trivial incident causes his peaceful days to collapse. Pardon me, I'm sorry. What awaits him at the end is a shocking, cruel truth. Can the past be rewritten? Rewritten, if I can talk. Wewitten. 9 souls are trapped in Labo. They attempt to escape the facility in the face of that hopeless situation. However, reality sneers at those struggling to survive. At the limits of fatigue and anxiety, and death looming over them, something lurks in their hearts. Is it the courage to never give up, or can they leave the path to the future with their own hands? Considering that this one has so many damn endings, and this one is like 5 endings. I'm not 100% sure which route I should do first, so we'll just go with this one, because, not necessarily because of the endings, but it seems like the before route, it tells the history of before. No achievement unlocked, really? Before? Okay. The roar echoed through the laboratory at daybreak, as if it were a bell heralding the end. Oh my goodness. The boy gasped in shock. The girl screamed beside him. They felt the tremors through the floor. Wow, holy shit. That's pretty fucking bad, you know? If that shit was happening here, I'd be scared. The boy called Natsuhiko gritted his teeth at the girl's words. His words were drowned out by the shrill shriek of an alarm. Oh shit. Okay. Oh my goodness. September 16th, 2030. Now, I'm not really going to do voiceovers for the characters that are speaking, so I'll probably talk in between. I have no idea what that warning says. God dang. September 16, 2030, 6:19 a.m. at the 6th Laboratory of Atomic and Biological Organization. Labo. God. Oh my god. Oh yeah. A calm automated voice read out an announcement. Everyone seems to be confused by the fragmentary information.
何が起きたんだ。わかりません。爆発のようですが。爆発だとこの施設でか。
The announcement continues as if to answer that question.
緊急放送です。ただいま施設内で原因不明の爆発が発生しました。現状判明している限り、施設内の十数箇所で同時に爆発が起き、それに伴い火災も発生しています。入口研究員、柏木研究員、至急第2エリアに来て。十数箇所で爆発だと。
Explosions in 10 different locations.
原因不明？どういうことだ？
As the men shuddered, a female scientist muttered.
大丈夫よ。この施設には二重三重の防災システム。何が起こっても大規模な災害になったりはしないはず。安全は確保されているの。安心して。
You say this and then shit happens. She spoke softly and gently to quell their fears with hope. But that hope was trampled soon enough. Yeah, no shit.
消火システムが作動しない。なぜだ？くそ。
Ooh, it's storming here. I got storms inside the game and storms at my own house. Congratulations, it's a double feature today. The systems that were supposedly their last ray of hope proved to be completely ineffective. Yup, saw that coming.
ファクトリーでも出火を確認。開発中の機材が炎上してます。ふざけるな。開発にいくらかかってる。燃えましたで済ませられるか。人力でしょ。4箇所で同時出火してるんですよ。誰が消火できるって言うんですか。
Chaos and hysteria dominated the facility. Anxiety began to spread. And as if to top it all off, a new announcement rang out.
N エリアの数値増幅を確認。緊急停止システム N エリアおよび制御室の職員も全員直ちに地上へ避難してください。
Oh shit, okay. The moment the announcement ended, the silence shifted to sheer panic.
数値増幅。とにかく地上へ。遠隔制御室へ。エレベーターはダメです。階段。AD を投与しろ。備蓄してあるはずだろ。まさかこれを使うことになると。迷うな。マニュアル通り。
They did their best to adapt the situation, but it was all too late by then.
非常階段が崩れ落ちただと。エレベーターも全て停止しています。避難の術がありません。バカな。
Their escape routes were cut off, and they had no way of knowing why. Nobody understood what was going on. Nobody, with a few exceptions, that is. Natsuhiko and the girl stared at the collapsed staircase in exasperation.
全部奴らの。
まさかここまでの状況になるなんて。どうするの、夏彦。
Girls beside him grieved. Just how much time did they have left? Ooh, nice music. Actually, that's a little more upbeat music than I would assume in a situation like this. As he pondered that question, the boy looked at his watch, but to his dismay, one of the explosions had broken it. The watch's date had stopped at 9:16, its hands at 6:19. Time he'd likely never forget for the rest of his life. If only we had gotten here just a little bit sooner. But even if they were late, there was still meaning to their arrival. Natsuhiko tried to walk off, but the girl grabbed him by the hand.
待ってよ、夏彦。そんな状態でどこに行くつもり？
奴らを探しに。
まさか夏彦。
奴らの計画を阻止するんだ。
それはダメ。夏彦、頭を冷やして。
どうして？真城だって僕がここに来ることには同意してくれたじゃないか。
さっきまでとは状況が違うじゃない。
遅くない。きっとまだ間に合う。それにどこに逃げても同じだ。だったら。
The moment those words left his lips, a sharp pain ran through his cheek. The girl had slapped him.
また失いたいの。
Those words gouged out his heart. And then another roar rang out.
爆発。
The girl's pleading voice shook Natsuhiko's heart. Natsuhiko's heart.
分かった。
Oh. God, I just want to read everything, but I'm trying not to read over the voicing. And thus they ran, looking for an exit, without knowing what laid ahead of them. And thus the long day that they'd later look back to time and time again had begun.
別の階段を探そう。どこかに。
施設内の構造はわかる？先に調べるべき。やみくもに逃げるのは。
サリュー、何をし。
今この施設内の先ほど崩れたのは外周塔の非常階段だと思う。隣の内周塔にも非常階段があるみたいだね。
よし、じゃあなんで
まさか施設内の人たちを逃がさない
ここは危険だ。別の道。僕は隣の第2エリアに続く道が無事か確認してくる。
了解。気をつけて。
They ran with all the courage they could muster to escape from the facility and survive. But in the midst of their path, he ran into her.
ユーリ?
There stood Yuri, the girl who lived in Natsuhiko's home, the girl who was supposed to be waiting for them at home, the girl who shouldn't have been here. What's Yuri doing here? Natsuhiko gazed at her in astonishment. Yuri.
どうして来てしまったの?
Sadly muttered this.
ユーリこそどうしてここに? 家から出られたのか?
As he asked the question, Natsuhiko thought back and recalled the journey that brought him here. Eventually, Yuri spoke in a lonely voice.
そういうことだったの.
And smiled as if a weight had been taken off her shoulders. At that moment, a flash flickered right beside them.
Yuri!
Natsuhiko swiftly lunged at Yuri, and not a second later, a shockwave struck him. Well then, Natsuhiko and Yuri were blown away. In a split second before they hit the ground, the events that led up to today flashed before Natsuhiko's eyes. How did this happen? The answer lied in his memories. It all began that fateful day. 6 days ago. September 10th, 2030. Back before anybody had even expected things would turn out this way. Back when everything was still peaceful. Holy shit, okay. Eventually, in the deep depths of his fading consciousness, awake, a voice called to him, or perhaps it was merely a memory of such a voice. He heard that voice as he lay beneath the whitewashed tomb. And then time began to move. Interesting. When Tatsuko woke up that day, he found himself in his own bed, which was only to be expected. He had only slept and woken up in his room for as long as he could remember. He'd get up, put on his glasses he had set aside, and stretch his arms out wide. He felt as though he had woken from a worrying dream, but he couldn't remember what it was. A cursory look at his watch showed that it was 9:10 at 6:19. His watch was perfectly measuring the flow of time today. As usual, not even once had it broken these past 10 years. Climbed out of bed, changed his uniform, and left his room. Once he entered the living room, he heard some light humming coming from the kitchen.
おはよ
Once he called out to her,
おはよ
the one humming cheerfully replied. The newscaster on TV was rambling on a matter-of-fact tone of
う。次の
voice.
ニュースです。今朝未明、鹿鳴市の BC トレーニングセンターに過激派団体に先頃行われた BC セミナーとの関連も指摘されており、警察は市の保安課と共同で
Natsuko casually let the news in one ear and out the other, thinking to himself, "Almost time for her to wake up, huh?" As soon as that thought crossed his mind, he heard the living room door open.
う。おはよう、ユーリ。
う。光、柱、
Yuri sank into the table as she muttered the nicknames she had for those two. Right around that time, the other girl came out of the kitchen.
おはよう、ユーリ。ちょうどご飯ができたとこだよ。
Brightly sounding the morning meal call was Mashiro, Natsuhiko's childhood friend. Yuri was about to fall back to sleep before Mashiro's voice woke her up.
ご飯だ、ご飯だ。
今日のメニューは
ハッシュドポテトにベーコンエッグ、サラダにオムレツにオレンジジュース。いわゆるアメリカンブレックファーストだよ。
おお、朝から充実してるな。
おいしそう。さあ、それじゃ皆さん、手を合わせて
いただきます。
And thus they began their breakfast as usual.
おいしい。
ああ、よくあんな短時間。
慣れだよ、慣れ。もう半年も作ってるんだもん。
Just another typical breakfast at the Tenkawa residence. Now that I think about it, it's a little strange, huh? We're not even family. Though they were all sharing a meal at the same table, none of the people here were related. The only family Natsuko had was his mother. His father passed away before Natsuhiko could remember. His mother worked hard to support them to the point that she became a serious workaholic. She spent most of her time at work, seldom returning home. As Natsuhiko sat lost in his thought, a concerned voice called out to him.
ああ、いや、大丈夫。
This girl's name was Yuri Kotono. She was Natsuhiko's childhood friend and 2 years his senior. She started living in his house with Natsuhiko long ago due to extenuating circumstances. They grew up like siblings, and even today they seemed like real family members. Yuri was a kind girl and would always worry about Natsuhiko almost to a fault.
僕はこう見えて体は頑丈なんだ。食欲はいつも旺盛。
And with that declaration, he stuffed his cheeks with bread, causing a different cheerful voice to chime in this time.
いい食べっぷりだね、夏彦。
This girl's name was Mashira Toba. She didn't exactly live with Natsuhiko. She was another one of Natsuhiko's childhood friends, but she only started having breakfast here about half a year ago. In absence of his mother, Natsuhiko generally did most of the chores in the Tenkawa residence. But skillful and adaptable as he was, even Natsuhiko had something he wasn't good at, and that something was cooking. Prior to Natsuhiko's entering his high school, a commuting housekeeper had prepared his meals, but his spring, she had to resign for personal reasons. But his spring, and that's when Natsuhiko's mothers asked Mashiro to help prepare breakfast and dinner, since they lived in the same neighborhood. Natsuhiko bowed his head in Mashiro's words and muttered softly.
それにしても。
何言ってんの。夏彦のお母さんからお礼もいただいてるし、それにあんたのためじゃない。どっちかって言えば有利のた。
ああ、そうかい。ま、僕はどっちでも。おい。
And then, as if to interrupt their peaceful chit-chat, an unsettling voice rang
それ
out.
では次のニュースです。昨夜、鹿鳴市内の研究施設 BC 開発センターで火災があり、
火事。
Suddenly, silence spread across the dining table. The newscaster continued matter-of-factly.
出火時、屋内には数名の職員、研究員が出動した消防レスキュー隊により全員無事に救出され、
助かったんだ。
ん？
あれ、なんか適当。冷たいんだ、夏彦。
Yeah, you cold-hearted bastard. What the fuck's wrong with you?
そうか？テレビの向こう側の話に一喜一憂しても仕方がないじゃないか。
でもこの町で起き近頃物騒だし、何か事件に巻き込ま。
考えすぎさ。大丈夫。
The town they lived in was quite good about public order. It was unthinkable that any of them would get caught up in an incident. However, at the time, Yuri shook her head and quietly
ヒ
spoke.
コリン、安心してばかりいちゃダメだよ。
え？
恐ろしい出来事はテレビの向こうでしか起きない。ヒコリンの身にだって予想もつ。
Natsuhiko's expression stiffened upon hearing such an ominous prediction. That was kind of freaky, the way it did that little static shift. No way. He tried to say it, but his voice wouldn't come out. Dreadful incidents don't happen twice. His peaceful days would continue forever, without even the slightest disturbance. At least that's what he always thought. Yeah, disturbance was exactly what Natsuhiko suddenly noticed out of the corner of his eye. His prized watch from years ago had broken sometime when he wasn't looking. Why? When did it? Natsuhiko was still unaware of why that watch of his had broken. The watch dial read 9:16, 6:19. That was the time Natsuhiko's watch broke. Sense of sympathy tutorial. We apologize interrupting you so early on, but there are no choices in this world. Regardless, we need your power to link this world to the future. So the sense of sympathy system has been prepared in order to allow you to willingly influence the world. This story will explain the SSS to you. But before that, let's explain what we mean by senses here. Senses refers to impressions, emotions, sensations. In this context, to put it simply, it's your assessment of how you feel about someone. In other words, if their senses are high, you have a good impression of that person. But on the other hand, if their senses are low, that means you have a bad impression of that person. And the senses sympathy system exists to quantify your senses and reflect them on this world. Now then, let's explain how to change the value of your senses. In specific scenes, a graphic that looks like a magic seal will appear in the upper right-hand corner of that screen. This is known as the Enneagram. Enneagram? I guess? The graph is a kind of personality assessor that categorizes people into 9 different personality types. Each of the 9 main characters of the story have been categorized into these 9 types. Thus, the 9 characters have been distributed in the 9 points of the Enneagram. A graph, similar to a radar chart, is displayed at the top of the Enneagram. Oh, shit, I didn't mean that. How do I back? Oh, fuck. Okay. The shape of the graph corresponds to the 9 characters, and its shape will change as you alter their senses. You can input the senses of 9 characters, which include the protagonist. Thus, in a sense, you may also set the sense you have for yourself. In such an instance, you determine whether or not you have confidence in your instincts and opinions. Alternatively, you determine how much you value yourself. Senses sympathy system. Truly, a system where you determine the protagonist's various senses each time. Your senses will be used to determine each scenario divergence, and you will travel down at fixed divergence points. At divergence points, the story automatically diverges in accordance to the level of your senses. You can't simply input your senses whenever you want. You can only do that. Section is known as branches. When you arrive at a branch, an Enneagram will appear at the upper right-hand corner. Please check the Enneagram displaying or not to determine whether you can or can't input your senses. Allow us to explain in detail through example. Let's play a demo scenario branch while you actually control the system. First, please take a look at the next scene. The senses input hasn't appeared yet, so please just play through the text as you normally would. In a certain boy's house, a TV and a game console were sitting in a neat, tidy living room. Just then, a girl came down from the hallway and spoke as inquisitive.
ゲームとても大切。そっか。ちょっとお話しした。
The girl looked at you hopefully as she said that.
ごめんなさい。 気にしないで。それじゃあ。
The girl slumped her shoulders with disappointment, and then she left the living room with a lonely step in the gate, I think. This was an example of an occasion where your senses for that girl were low. Now then, let's play the scene one more time, with the goal this time being to make the girl happy. There will be a branch this time, so you can input your senses here. When you arrive at the branch, the Enneagram will appear at the upper right-hand corner. Please increase your senses for the girl before the Enneagram disappears. When the senses lights up, please click it and bring up the senses input screen. You can also bring it up the screen by pressing the V button. When you click the senses, you will arrive at this screen. This is the senses input screen. Use the cursor to choose whose senses you'd like to change. Bring it to the knob directly below them, then change their senses. Click the Decide button to set your values and finish the inputs. You can only do senses inputs one time per branch. You can't input it again if you change your mind after you decided, so please be careful.
ねえねえ、ゲームのレとても大切なことなの？
Are you sure you want to set your senses?
そっか。ちょっとお話。
The girl looked at you hopefully as she said that. So you...
お話しして。はーい。今日は七夕っていう日なんだって。それでね、短冊に願い事を書くと、だから今から準備しなきゃ。
The girl then started talking happily about the bamboo trees that are set up in the Tanabata. Oh, okay. That's kind of a different system. It's not really choice-based. Congratulations, you have successfully raised the girl's favor. In this example, the girl had two different reactions, but there may be more than that depending on the situation. Also, there isn't always just one census target. If there is ever more than one target, then you need to take into consideration you'll have to reevaluate your senses for them eventually. In these situations, you can input for more than one character, but the only ones whose senses you can input are those who are involved in the next branch. You cannot alter the senses for an unrelated character. There will occasionally be times where senses hold a greater importance than usual. As such, there are 3 different senses colors, each one's corresponding to the importance of the upcoming branch. Blue, this signifies an event where you can probably influence the target's favor. Blue branch is known as generally not all that important. You don't even need to change your senses every time it comes up. All you have to do is change it whenever your impression of the target alters. But if you neglect too many blue branches, it could have dire consequences for you further down the line. Yellow, this generally signifies an event where you can probably influence someone's actions. A yellow branch, as it's known, is generally very important. Expect them to signify big changes, such as... Oh, fuck, well, I didn't read that. What's the log? Is known as generally very important. Expect them to signify big changes, such as changing your destination or travel partner. They're not dangerous, but it's best that you change your senses to reflect your intentions at these points. And though it's rare, a yellow branch can signify that a branch of grave danger is approaching, so please be careful. Red, this signifies grave danger. Red branch, as it's known, is of the utmost importance. Decide incorrectly and you'll find death lying in wait for you. Keep your eyes peeled to avoid danger, and please check your senses immediately to ensure there are no problems. Also, branches directly related to the story's conclusion will be red. We recommend you exercise cautious judgment there in the same way. This concludes the senses sympathy system explanation. Your senses will change the situation in various ways. Now then, let us return to the world. When time starts again, a senses input will appear right away. The Enneagram will be glowing blue. However, the girl's favors towards the boy is very important to him. The tragic result may be awaiting in the worst case scenario. Please look over the situation calmly and select your senses carefully. We are expecting your feelings to have a good effect on this world. Well, okay. Let's do a save right here while we're at it. Holy shit, over 100 save points? Okay. Wow, it's only been 30 minutes in this playthrough. Okay. When did his watch break? What was the meaning behind Yuri's cryptic message? Natsuhiko thought for a moment in bewilderment, but eventually just shrugged.
ユーリは心配性だな。大丈夫だよ。恐ろしい出来事なんか起きない。昔の僕とは違うんだ。危険なとこ。
ごめんね。暗い。
何？
As he spoke, he glanced at his watch and was taken aback. What? He could have sworn he saw that his watch was broken just a second ago, but on closer inspection the dial was unscratched, and the hands were ticking away as always. 9, 10, 6:49. There was nothing strange about the time displayed either. Guess I was just seeing things. It seemed a bit strange, but he had no other explanation. When Natsuhiko and Yuri exchanged smiles, a slightly exasperated Mishiro chimed in. Can I do it for myself right now? I think that'll be fine. What are you two muttering so seriously about? So early in the morning. Oh, why am I talking? When he heard Mashiro's suggestion, Natsuhiko declined.
まあまあ、たまにはしんみりする朝もいいじゃないか。
なんかテンション。
Mashiro seemed a little dissatisfied, but... Well, Yuri's a little depressed too, so what can I say? With that thought in mind, he let her be, and thus their breakfast quietly came to an end. After breakfast, Natsuhiko quickly got dressed. He grabbed his bag, turned on the lights, and bade farewell to Yuri as she was staying home.
それじゃあユリ、
Bye,
学校行って。
ユーリ、お留守番よろしくね。
いってらっしゃい。
And with that farewell, Natsuhiko and Mashiro left the house. Okay, well then, I guess that works. As they got outside, a cool breeze brushed against their cheeks.
いやー、過ごしやすい季節になったね。
ああ、もうすぐ秋って感じだな。
A day like this would be perfect for a leisurely stroll to school through the breeze, but a quick glance at his watch told Natsuhiko they only had around 5 minutes to make it to the bus stop in time.
ってやばい。このままじゃ本当に遅れるぞ。
嘘。走ろう、夏彦。
ああ。
Natsuhiko and Mashiro broke off into a mad dash to the bus stop closest to Natsuhiko's home. Along the way, they spotted the bus already at the stop.
急げ。バスが出。
But just after Natsuhiko said that, the bus had already begun to depart. They needed to get on that bus or they'd be late for sure.
おい、待って。
Natsuhiko's yelling fell on deaf ears as the bus began to speed away.
聞こえるわけないか。マシロ、どうする？
Natsuhiko turned to Mashiro and immediately held his tongue. He had thought she was running along beside him, but she was instead standing still with her eyes closed, and her index finger to her temple.
おい、マシロ、まさか。
ちょっと待って、集中するから。
Mashiro said thus, and the very next moment... The fuck? The voice rang out in all directions that seemed loud enough to reverberate the very core of one's mind. The birds in the trees flew away all at once. A dog basking in the sunny sidewalk leapt to his feet and scurried away in surprise. Finally, the bus that had left to the two... Oh, pardon me. Wow, okay. And finally, the bus that had left to the two far behind suddenly braked. Natsuhiko held down his ears as he spoke. He felt like his eardrums were still shaking from the loud voice earlier, but... Oh wait, it's got nothing to do with my ears. That voice was reverberating directly in Natsuhiko's brain.
BC を使う。
BC is the ability to communicate ideas directly into someone else's brain. A power one must never use recklessly. And yet, in light of an accusation of said reckless use, Mashiro nonchalantly replied.
声が届かないなら心に直接語りかけ。
いや、それはわかるけど、不特定多数の人に発信しちゃダメだろう。
仕方ないじゃん。遅刻するかどうかの瀬戸際な。
ああ、条例違反で捕まっても知らん。
大丈夫大丈夫。このくらい多めに見てくれるって。
Natsuhiko and Mashiro rushed to the stop bus as they had that exchange. Oh, Jesus. Okay. And 20 long minutes after they narrowly managed to board the bus, Natsuhiko and Mashiro arrived at their school, Rokume Academy. A large-scale school incorporating elementary school all the way to high school. As they passed through the gate, Mashiro asked Natsuhiko a question.
1次元目なんだっけ？
超心理学だよ。
What?
へえ、朝っぱらか。
いいじゃないか。お前の好きな BC。
And with that exchange, Natsuhiko and Mashiro entered the school building. First period, parapsychology. A particularly important part of Rokume Academy's curriculum. A lesson takes place in a special BC room. Course teacher Anna Tsubakiyama stood at the podium with her pointer directed at the screen.
時代とともに人間のコミュニケーションのあり方は
This lecture again. Professor Tsubakiyama really loves the story, huh? Anna would often tell stories about BC like this. However, today's story was unusually basic information.
はるか昔仕草や行動で他者に意思を伝えていた人間はやがて言葉を手にしました。そして文字が生まれ、活版印刷が生まれ、電信、電話、インターネット、今世紀の初頭、人間のコミュニケーションのあり方に大体、そう、皆さんご存知。
Anna controlled the computer as she spoke. And text appeared on the screen.
ビヨンドコミュニケーション。それは言語を介さずに行う新しい意思伝達方法。一昔前の人から見たらはっきり言って超能力よね。でもこれはオカルトの世界の話じゃありません。オカルトの語源は隠すということ。これだけ大々的に認知されたらもうオカルトじゃないわ。
And I was exactly right. People who can use BC, popularly known as communicators, have made their existence known worldwide in the past 16 years or
歴史
so.
のターニングポイントは2014年 BC の存在が科学的にほぼ実証、それと連動するかのように世界中で多数のコミュニケーターが生まれるようにもなりました。
New text appeared on the screen as Anna spoke. (2014) was the year Natsuhiko and Mashiro were born. Society transformed in many ways in the following years, but Natsuhiko was not quite sure of the details. I've heard humans don't remember things that don't interest them. I guess it's true. In stark contrast to Natsuhiko's listlessness, Anna continued her eloquent lecture.
コミュニケーターがまず他者に意思を伝えるテレパシー。これは16年前の BC 大発言の直後に発見されたわね。その次の能力、他者の心を読むエンパシー。こちらもその翌年には存在。テレパシーを使える人はこの中にもかなりいるわよね。日本の場合コミュニケーターの発言率は16年連続で右肩上がり。
Natsuhiko glanced at Mashiro as he turned a deaf ear to Anna's lecture. The ability Mashiro used to stop the bus earlier this morning is a prime example of telepathy. But the extent of the ability she used there was not at all uncommon. The Esper's Nest, huh? Natsuhiko sighed as he recalled the honorable yet somehow odd nickname given to his school. BC is a convenient ability to have, but to master requires quite a bit of practice, and so in recent years it was decided that a school would be established for the technical training of communicators to improve their abilities. In other words, it was to be a school meant solely for communicators. That school was the very same school Natsuko attended, the Parapsychology Specialty Room Rokume Academy. Rokume Academy is integrated from elementary to high school in order to provide special education for gifted children starting at a young age. Naturally, its curriculum includes a great number of BC-related classes. Acceptance of Rokume Academy requires BC aptitude. Every year, when new students enter the school, the principal makes the speech. You all have passed a rigorous selection process and may now consider yourselves part of the BC elite. Elite, huh? Natsuko coldly pondered the principal's words. Once Natsuko finished his little recollection and his voice finally reached him.
でね、日本は諸国まさに国家的ファインプレーよね。その結果として
Eventually, out of the entire class of bored students, a few began to call out with wry smiles on their faces.
先生、今日の前工場はそんなん知らない生徒この学校にはいない。
そうそう、いつもの BC うんちくな。
あら、ごめんなさい。昨夜 BC 黎明期の電気映画見たんで、ちょっと。
And it cleared her throat and erased the text on the screen somewhat sadly.
さて、座学はこの辺で。皆さん。
And with that, the students turned to their neighbors like usual, which is why students often sat next to people they were close to in this class.
それでは皆さん。
The signal area began practicing at once. Immediately, the noisy whispers of telepathy filled Natsuko's head. If these whispers were to reach other classrooms, they'd be a nuisance. However, the BC's rooms walls used material that dampened the conduction of telepathy, allowing the students to practice without worrying about their noise.
じゃあ僕らもやるか。
When Natsuko turned her way and said this, Mashiro couldn't help but curl her lips into a dauntless smile.
この能力レベル3の
なんですぐそうやって勝負事にするんだ。
でもテレパシーなら私とっくにマスターしちゃってるからね。練習台になってやるからちょっとやってみなよ。
偉そうに。
Natsuko closed his eyes and put his finger to his temple. This posture is a key to facilitating the use of telepathy. It's the same technique Mashiro used when she stopped the bus. Damn it, Mashiro, get off that high horse. Natsuko brought those words to mind. He then searched around for Mashiro's brainwaves, concentrated hard to get her to hear his voice.
どうだ。
Natsuko opened his eyes and see Mashiro grinning at him.
届いたよ。真っ白かわいい、素敵、ベリーキュートって。
そうか、なるほど。思ったのと真逆のことが伝わったということは、これは
真逆なんす
まあいずれにせよ、テレパシーは僕には難しすぎる。
って諦めるの早すぎだよ。今まで使えなかったもの。
努力どうこうの話じゃないさ。
Natsuko was incapable of the fundamentals, short distance telepathy with a familiar target. The 6th level system of ability ranking, he was at the lowest at level 0. An extreme oddity for students of this school. But suddenly a voice of concern called out to them.
あら、私は天川くんは才能あると思うけど。
あ、先生もそう。
僕自身は。
でも子供の頃に測った適正度は。
そうですけど。
He found that a mystery himself. Latin BC talent could be quantified through genetic analysis. This measurement was called aptitude and was broken down in 6 ranks: E, D, C, B, A, and S. For some reason, Natsuko's aptitude was a top class at rank S, but despite his aptitude, his talent was non-existent. And he wasn't just teased once or twice about it, which may or may not be the factors why Natsuko thoroughly hated the use of BC now.
要するに、
そんなわけないわ。適正度ってのは生来毎年4月に測る。
Secretly, that wasn't the whole truth, but it was a long story, so Natsuko just left it at that.
この私でさえ B なのにね。
まあ才能が能力に比例するとはか。
何を言ってるの。適正度 S の生徒なんて
私も天下。
先生は夏彦には甘い。
あら、人聞きの悪い。もっとも天川君については適正。
Natsuko inadvertently looked away as soon as he saw Anna's teasing smile. Anna had only started teaching here since April, but she was a good teacher with devotion to her students and enthusiasm for education. She seemed particularly fond of Natsuko and always looked after him like this. I know she's not trying to be mean, but I really don't like when people bring up their topic of BC.
とにかく天川君は大器晩成。
任せてください先生。
まあ、
And thus Natsuko and Mishiro practiced telepathy for a while. But as always, Natsuko showed no signs of a breakthrough, and the end of a class drew near. Having been Natsuko's practice partner for his entire school career, Mishiro was stumped.
ああ、ダメだな。
だいたいやる気がなさすぎるんだよ夏彦は。せっかく練習に
そうは言ってもな。
You say so, but you know, telepathy isn't really all that useful to begin with.
なぬ、そりゃこの学園の生徒。
だって他者に意思を伝えるって言ったって、せいぜい離れたところにいる相手と連絡できるくらいで。
何にも分かってないね。テレパシーで伝えられることは声だけじゃない。言葉にはならない思いや感情を伝えることだ。
分かってるけど、それって。
もうじゃあちょっと体験させてあげるよ。
Mishiro put her fingers up to her temple, exasperated.
いいよ別。
The moment those words left Natsuko's lips, Mishira's voice rang through his head.
さっきからエナ先生の方チラッチラ見てんじゃないよ。そんなんで練習になるわけないでしょ。
Along with hearing Mishira's words, Natsuko left her emotion, anger, and resentment.
見てたか？
練習に付き合うのがアホらしくなるほど。
そうか。
I wasn't really aware I was doing it myself. I guess older women are one of my weaknesses. The moment that thought passed through Natsuko's mind, Anna stood at the podium and spoke.
さて皆さん、そろそろ授業も。今日の実習はどうだったかしら。
はあ。
至近距離テレパシーはもう完璧です。
Candid answers flew across the room from all directions. Anna smiled and addressed her students.
歩みは人それぞれのようね。でもBC の習熟というのに。だけどね、能力レベルや練習期間にかかわらず BC の使用のため重要となる五感とは違う第六の感覚を引き出すためには常識を超えた集
中しているつもりなんですが。
A boy who seemed quite lacking in concentration mused, and smiled and replied.
半端な集中力ではダメよ。 BC を使用するほどの極度の集中がなされると、代わりに場合によっては体温や脈拍の低下など、その境地に達した時脳の新たな力が発揮され。
Upon hearing that statement, Natsuko secretly thought to himself, concentration, huh? That's one thing I like the most of in this class. The moment he thought that was right around the same time the dismissal bell rang.
はい、
Okay.
それじゃみんなおつ。
Later, after second period, lunch break started. Mishiro called out to Natsuko.
はいはい、ご飯の時間だよ。
あ
何か他の約束でもあるの？
あ、いや、ユーリはちゃんと。
何言ってんの。いつも通りお昼。まったく夏彦はいつでもどこでも。
悪かったって。それじゃ購買にでも行こう。
Natsuko Mishiro left the classroom. During lunch break, students would huddle up and chat in the classrooms and the courtyard. You could hear voices coming from every which way just by walking down the
い
corridor.
や今日も賑やかだね。
いや、賑やかす。
Oh, okay. My controls kind of weirded out for a second. It just skipped one line, but I'm sure y'all were reading that before. Like this particular dramatic session of the youth, for example. But anyways, just to clarify something on that last Enneagram, I lowered Mishiro just for the simple fact that it seemed like she was being pushy, and I kind of figured anybody doing something like that. Me personally, I mean, it's not like I would hate the person, but it seemed like I would just be a little put off by them at the moment, so yeah.
宗像さん、俺はあなたが好きです。付き合っ誰っていうかテレパシーで告白しないでよ。恥ずかしい。二度とこんなことはしないで。宗像さん、宗像。
Or are those trying to use BC for an advantage in sports?
次はカーブで行くぞ。オーケー、ストライクゾーンギリギリ。あのさ、お前らテレパシー。まずい、選球変えろ。やっぱフォークだ、フォーク。だから漏れてるって。普通に。
Or are those using untargeted BC to have their voices heard by the masses even though they knew it was wrong?
Hello everybody! 軽音部ゲリラライブのお時間だ。今日は校内のみんなに我がエンジェル神谷とザ・コミュニケーターズのそれじゃ早速行こうか。1曲目グレープに染まるコミュニケーションブレックスルー。Oh, コミュニケーションブレックスルー。1, 2, 3 Bad in love, bad in love, bad in love.
Okay, that was pretty funny.
うるせえぞ、飯がまずくなる。
曲パクってんじゃねえ。
バンド名がダセえんだよ。
Or even private talks that should be best kept to oneself.
あ、見ろ。エナ先生が廊下走ってる。それってわざわざ BC 使って伝えることか？いや、先生に聞かれたら怒られるからさ。多分聞かれてるぞ。今まで隠してたが、お前のテレパシーって基本ダダ漏れだ。マジで？何？
Many such voices rang out directly in Natsuko's Mishiro's brains. Telepathy is by nature an ability to convey one's voice to specific individuals. However, communicators inexperienced with telepathy often end up accidentally sending mass untargeted messages.
ほんとうるさい学校だよな。
そう？いつものことじゃん。
Sure enough, these were familiar sights and sounds for students of the school. It's a logical consequence of attending a communicator-exclusive school, but still, reckless usage of BC isn't commendable at all. Abuse of untargeted telepathy was prohibited as it was an issue of bad manners, but said prohibition was not necessarily upheld, however, and I cannot talk for shit. Just then, as if to answer Natsuko's prayers, an announcement was broadcast school-wide.
皆さん、テレパシーの乱用はやめなさい。学校の外まで届いちゃって、近所から苦情が来てます。
And immediately after the announcement ended, the BC traffic around the school came to a screeching halt.
ようやく静かになっ。
やれやれ、テレパシーすらただ。
今朝のことを考えると、お前も偉そうなことは言えないけどな。
And with that conversation, Natsuko Mishiro left to buy food. And at the end of an eventful lunch period, afternoon classes began. Afternoon curriculum included modern language and politics and economics. Natsuko was unskilled with BC, but he took pride in the other subjects. There was a quick refresher quiz since summer break ended, but he finished it easily. And with that, today's classes came to a close.
はい、皆さん。今日も一日お疲れ様でした。
Anna greeted the class in the afternoon as their substitute homework teacher. Their original homework teacher was on maternity leave, so Anna was filling in.
連絡事項とかは特にありません。それ。
And as soon as Anna left, the classroom broke into noise. Students still hadn't settled in since summer break, so naturally they wanted to go enjoy themselves after school. Natsuko was an indoorsman, and so essentially he intended to go straight home after school. But Mishiro stopped him before he could.
夏彦ちょっと待って
なんだよ。
食料品なくなっちゃったの。
あれもうか
He could hardly refuse a request. Those groceries were going into his and Yuri's stomachs after all. Alrighty, fellas, so I'm going to save here and we will continue back later. This is basically almost an hour long, so I don't know. They may be 30 minutes to an hour long, depending on how quickly I can get them up. But yeah, I may put some 2 or 3 videos out a week for this, just depending on how much time I have and what I can and can't do. Personal life and all that fun jazz, but in any case, I'm going to save here. Well, at least I have a lot of saves. I'm pretty sure that's because there's so many damn endings, but anyways, I hope y'all have a good one, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Later, fellas.